Sponsor. I'd like to begin by asking the good secretary, because the PCOO is created by an executive order of the then President Benigno S. Aquino III. Executive Order number 4. And it has not been changed, Mr. Speaker. I just would like the good secretary to tell us what is the mandate of the PCOO, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, Sponsor.
Communications arm of the executive branch.
Mr. Speaker, the PCOO is the communications arm of the executive branch. So it is the premier arm in engaging and involving the citizenry and the mass media in order to enrich the quality of public discourse on all matters of governance and build a national consensus thereon.
Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, Mr. Sponsor, according to Executive Order number 4, that the task of informing and communicating to the Filipino people the policies, programs, official activities, and achievements of the Office of the President and the Executive Branch presently involves, aside from the Office of the Press Secretary, several offices and agencies, the functions of some of which overlap. It says right here, one of the assets, Mr. Speaker, there's a vital need to reorganize and effect functional changes within the Office of the Press Secretary and create an office to systematize, rationalize, and complement the existing structure to achieve a more efficient and systematic interaction between the people, more efficient and systematic interaction between the people, the Office of the President, and the Executive Branch. It also says that one of the mandate of the PCOO, is to tell the Filipino people the official activities, the programs, the achievements of the Office of the President and the Executive Branch. Recently, Mr. Speaker, Undersecretary Lorraine Badoy spoke against some of the members of this chamber, particularly the Makabayan bloc that belongs to the minority bloc. May I ask, Mr. Speaker, all of the things that Undersecretary Badoy said, like this statement, ang mga representante ng Makabayan Bloc na sina Arlene D. Brosas ng Gabriela, Franz L. Castro ng ACT, Sara Ilago ng Kabataan, Eufemia Kulamat, Ferdinand Caite at Carlos Esagani Sarate ng Bayan Mo na Party List ay mga matataas na ranggong kasapi ng Communist Party of the Philippines, New People's Army, National Democratic Front, na ang layunin ay pahinain at wasakin ang ating gobyerno upang pabagsakin ang demokrasya at tuluyang itatag ang komunismo. Ang mga ito ay walang kahihiyan at walang tigil sa paggamit ng kakayahan ng gobyerno upang sirain at pahinain ng gobyerno mismo. Inaalisan nila ng sigla at kinang ang isang bansang ang mga mamamayan ay maisipag, progresibo at may mabubuting kalooban. Ito, meron siyang binigay na hamon at nilagay po niya na siya'y Undersecretary Lorraine Badoy, NTF LCAC spokesperson. Matanong ko lang po, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, yun po bang mga statements ni Yusek Badoy ay ayon sa mandato ng PCOO?
Mr. Speaker, ayon po kay Secretary Martin ng PCOO, ang mga binitawan pong salita ni Yusek Badoy ay sa kanya pong sariling mga komento, sa kanya pong sariling mga opinyon ukol po sa mga ilang miyembro ng ating pong mababang kapulungan. Hindi po ito opinyon ng PCOO at gusto po idiin ni Secretary Martin ng PCOO ay isa pong platform kung saan ito po ay maaring gamitin ng iba't ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan para sa kanila pong information dissemination, Mr. Speaker.
So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, ayon sa inyong salita, na itinatanggi ng PCOO na ito mismo ang official statement ng PCOO, itong mga sinabi ni Undersecretary Badoy. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman.
Kung tama po yung aking nadinig, Mr. Speaker, hindi po mga itong mga statement ni Yusek Badoy ay hindi po galing sa opisina ng PCOO.
Okay, so I would accept, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, na inamin po ng PCOO that this is not an official statement of the PCOO. What Undersecretary Badoy spoke of are her own personal opinions. Subalit, Mr. Speaker, bakit po niya nilagay na alam nyo, kung siya po ay private person speaking, wala pong problema sa akin yan. Opo, katulad po yan, halimbawa, sa akin distrito, kapag nagsalita ang sinumang constituent ko, laban sa akin, tatanggapin ko. Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, bakit po? Because he is saying this in his private capacity. Pero dito po, nakalagay po dito, pagkatapos niyang sabihin, nakalagay po sa kanyang statement, ginamit niya ang kanyang posisyon bilang undersecretary. At nilagay niya na siya po'y NTF LCAC spokesperson. Ibig sabihin, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor, na itong kanyang statement ay ginagawa niyang official statement ng NTF LCAC. Matanong ko nga po, ano po ba ibig sabihin ng NTF LCAC, Mr. Speaker?
NTF LCAC, Mr. Speaker, National Task Force
And
Local Communist Armed Conflict.
National Task Force to end.
To end local communist armed conflict.
Pero nabanggit po ninyo, Mr. Speaker, this is not the official statement and the official message of the PCOO. And therefore, Yusek Badoy should not be using her position in the PCOO in a statement like this, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Speaker, katulad po ng aking nabanggit kanina, hindi nga po ito posisyon ng PCOO. Tama po ang ating minority leader, Mr. Speaker, na nakalagay po doon sa post ni Yusek Badoy na NTF LCAC. Sapagkat dito ho sa Executive Order 70, siya po ay itinalaga bilang representative or spokesperson ng NTF-ELCAC. Kaya yung kanya pong post at yung kanya pong mga binanggit dun ho sa kanyang post ay yun po ay hindi sa PCOO, kundi po yun po ay posisyon ng NTF-ELCAC.
So yan po yung position, Mr. Speaker, ng NTF-ELCAC.
Tama po yun, Mr. Speaker.
Ito po bang LTF-ELCAC, Mr. Speaker, ay nasa ilalim ng PCOO?
Ang NTF-ELCAC ay hindi po nasa ilalim ng PCOO.
Therefore, Mr. Speaker, hindi niya dapat gamitin ang posisyong undersecretary because she is an undersecretary of PCOO, Mr. Speaker.
Nilagay niya po yung NTF-ELCAC dun ho sa kanyang post kasi siya po, si Yusek Badoy, ay siya po yung spokesperson at saka siya po yung head convener ng strategic communications ng NTF-ELCAC, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, that's given already. Pero sa akin po, ito po ay hindi official statement ng PCOO, kundi ng NTF-ELCAC. Ibig sabihin po niyan, hindi niya pwedeng gamitin ang opisina ng PCOO bilang undersecretary sa mga statements pong ganito. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. Now, gusto ko pong ituloy, ano po, I would like to say and declare publicly that I am not a communist, Mr. Speaker. I am against all kinds of armed conflicts, whether they be communist, rightist, Muslim terrorists, whatever it may be, past that armed conflict, any armed uprising to topple a duly constituted government, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I'm against it. I'm against it. I do not have any personal quarrel with Yusek Badoy. But may I state, for the record, Mr. Speaker, that being the minority leader of the 18th Congress, it is my duty to correct some misimpressions and to be able to speak for and in behalf of the members of the minority. So I'm going to end my questioning and be able to make a manifestation, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, to speak of the manifesto of the minority bloc, signed by all of the minority members, Mr. Speaker, Your Honor. And may I now read it. The House minority stands united in the pursuit of peace and justice in our country. We uphold the Filipino core values and the exercise of basic human rights and liberties enshrined in our Constitution. The House of Representatives is composed of elected public servants mandated to legislate laws and reforms that benefit the welfare of the citizenry and the whole country. Congress is currently deliberating the proposed 2021 national budget. And as members coming from the minority, we do our utmost to effectively and constructively scrutinize the same, even to the last centavo when possible, if only to make it responsive to the primordial needs of our people and country, especially in this crisis aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, these past days, the proposed budget briefing of the Presidential Communications Operation Office became a cause of great concern for the House minority. The PCOO has made use of its resources. Now, considering, Mr. Speaker, that the statements of Yusek Badoy are not the official statement of the PCOO, still, being a part of the PCOO, damay po ang buong PCOO dito. Ang sakit po ng kalingkingan ay sakit ng buong katawan. To speak of it, Mr. Speaker. So, gusto kong gamitin dito ang PCOO ngayon. The PCOO has made use of its resources through Yusek Badoy to peddle fake news, disinformation, and attacks on critics and the opposition in an attempt to curtail dissent. In particular, it has issued, or she has issued numerous statements in various media platforms falsely tagging as terrorists the members of the Makabayan bloc who are members of the House minority. At the forefront of these attacks is PCOO Yusek Lorraine Badoy. Her actions as an appointed government official does not uphold the basic Filipino core values and deliberately disrespects elected public officials who were mandated to serve their constituencies. These relentless attacks of Yusek Badoy through her social media platforms, which even incited her followers to issue threats of harm against sitting members of the House, are not acceptable to the minority, and we will not take it in stride or sitting down. And therefore, we demand the following. Number one, that the PCOO and all its officials and personnel take down all its social and other media posts that disrespect and slander the House of members belonging to the Makabayan bloc. That the PCOO issue a public apology for this grave misconduct against them. And finally, the removal of Yusek Badoy from her post, as she does not embody the proper conduct of a civil servant. Yusek Badoy's malicious terrorist tagging of the Makabayan bloc representatives are putting in jeopardy not only the security but more importantly the lives of sitting members of the House. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, kung pwede pong gawin ito ng isang appointed official ng gobyerno sa Makabayan bloc, pwede rin pong gawin ito sa kahit na sinong member ng House of the People. As we consider the budget of PCOO, it should commit to take necessary and immediate measures to hold itself accountable. It should make sure that the PCOO platform will not be used to propagate misinformation and incite hate and violence against critics and even perceived critics of the administration. The PCOO should take down all social media posts that attack groups and individuals for criticizing government policies. The 2021 proposed national budget should revolve around the pertinent issues of health, education, social services, and economic recovery. We are still under the public health and economic crisis brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. Government agencies and their officials are expected to serve the Filipino people and prioritize their welfare at all times. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, if indeed, in a very honest way, there is truth to the statements of Yusek Badoy, I would like to request of her not to use the court of public opinion and make it a trial of publicity. If indeed what she said is true, and she has documents to speak of the Makabayan bloc being a terrorist group and terrorist congressmen and those that believe in armed violence, then I would like to challenge Yusek Badoy to go to court against them. That is my challenge, Mr. Speaker. If I would not hear Yusek Badoy apologizing to this body, I would move for a deferment of the budget of the PCOO.
He's asking, so there is a response to this. Then if they denounce, I will really resign and I will apologize.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, katulad po ng aking nabanggit kanina, yung mga binitawan pong salita or mga post ni Yusek Badoy, kung makikita din po nating lahat, yun po ay mga komento sa mga post ng NTF-ELCAC. Kaya po, ito po ay official na posisyon ng NTF-ELCAC. Ito ay supposed to be vetted and confirmed by NTF-ELCAC. Kaya po, ayon na rin po kay Yusek Badoy, ay hindi ho nila kasamang NTF-ELCAC, hindi po nila pwede basta tanggalin ito pong mga nakapost sa social media.
Well,
Mr.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, inyo pong sinabi na ito po hindi official statement ng PCOO. Therefore, ito po ay mga personal and private statements of Yusek Badoy. Pinag-uusapan po natin dito ang budget ng PCOO. Mr. Speaker, sa akin pong pananaw, nais ko lang pong banggitin na dapat lamang pong igalang ng sino mang opisyal ng gobyerno ang tahanan ng taong bayan. This is the house of the people. And anyone can be open to any kind of a malicious statements like that. So, Mr. Speaker, kung tayo po ay magmamatigas po dito, ang request ko lamang po, Mr. Speaker, ay sabihin niya na ito ay kanyang personal statements. Tanggalin niya. Tanggalin niya yung mga statement niya, social media platform. Mag-apologize siya sa body. Opo. At pagkatapos po, kung talagang totoo na ito pong makabayang bloc na ito, mga terorista, idemanda niya sa proper court. Idemanda po niya sa proper court. Hindi po dito. Not in the court of public opinion. But in the judicial courts themselves, Mr. Speaker.
They're asking me, they want me to
Your Honor.
apologize. They come very willing to do that for as long as they denounce.
Mr. Speaker, naintindihan ko po yung manifesto na binasa ng ating minority leader, lalo na bilang kapwa miyembro ng mababang kapulungan. Ngunit, katulad po ng binanggit ko po kanina, ito nga pong mga post ay bukod sa personal na opinion na nilagay o sinulat ni Yusek Badoy, ito po ay official position ng NTF-ELCAC na kung saan siya po ay representative at saka spokesperson. Mr. Speaker, kanina po nabanggit ng ating minority leader na siguro lahat po tayo, kasama po ang ating minority leader, ay ayaw ng armed conflict. Ayaw po natin ng kaguluhan sa ating bansa. Ayaw po natin ng mga movement o mga aksyon para ipatumba ang ating pamahalaan. At yun lang rin naman po ang objective ni Yusek Badoy. Kaya po ayon na rin po sa inyong manifesto, willing po siya i-take down, willing po siya humingi ng paumanhin. Basta po ang ating pong mga kasamahan dito sa mababang kapulungan ay lahat ay magsasign din o kaya po ipapaalam din sa lahat na sila ay laban sa kahit anong armed conflict para patumbahin ang ating pamahalaan.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Sponsor, maraming salamat po. Alam niyo po, hindi ko po pinagtatanggol dito ang NPA. Hindi ko rin pinagtatanggol dito ang NDF, Mr. Speaker. Tulad po na nasabi ko sa inyo, ako po ay laban sa lahat ng mga armed conflict. Ayaw po natin ng armed conflict. Nais po natin sa ating bansa ay kapayapaan, Mr. Speaker. Ayaw po natin. Nagkakaroon po ng ganitong mga problema sa ating bayan sapagkat mayroong oppression at mayroong poverty. Pero palagay ko po, sa ilalim ng administrasyon ng ating Pangulo, ito po'y pwedeng i-address. Ito pong oppression na ito pong poverty ito pong korupsyon na ito. Atin nakita ang statement ng ating Pangulo, Mr. Speaker, na handa siyang mag-resign dahil lang po na inisa po siya sa korupsyon. All of this can be addressed if only, kung tayo po'y laban sa mga nag-i-incite ng rebellion, dapat laban din po tayo sa nag-i-incite ng mga flaming statements na siyang magbibigay sa ibang mga kakasunod na magkaroon ng violence, Mr. Speaker. Pero ako po'y nagpapasalamat sa pahayag ni Yusek Badoy. At sana po ay marinig po sa kanya, sa pamamagitan po ng sponsor natin, na kanya pong tatanggalin ang kanyang mga sinabi sa social platform. Siya po yung mag-apologize. Mr. Speaker, at kung talagang totoo na ito pong Makabayan Bloc na ngayon kasama natin dito sa House of Representatives ay mga terorista, then let her go to court. Let the NLF-LCAC go to court against them, but not in the court of public opinion. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask for a 2-minute suspension.